Welcome to episode 35 of the Gym Podcast. Today we have a very interesting episode about being taken seriously. We as young men, I think we're seeing the rise of unserious men in our culture. And we've talked about this before. I think we've mentioned it before. And if you listen to our other podcast, Think Deeper, I know we've talked about it there, extending adolescence, things like that. But this episode, we really want to discuss the idea of being unserious and really why that's a problem, in general.
And really how to take yourself seriously,
right.
I would say as well, because we do see a lot of unseriousness in guys, in men specifically. And obviously, the whole point behind this podcast, and again, full credit to Joe, it's his brainchild. He was the one that came to me with the idea. The whole idea behind this podcast is, look, we got a lot of guys that aren't stepping up, really.
Right.
We got a lot of guys who are not leading their families well. A lot of guys
not striving for greatness.
Not striving for greatness, and this ties into it. They're not. Yep. They're unserious. And Joe, let me ask this first. We don't have this on the outline, so a little curveball here. But I was going to ask you, what do we mean by unserious? Like what does that mean? And when we're encouraging guys to take themselves seriously, what does that mean? Because what we see, and just to kind of again intro and preview this, we see a lot of preachers, see a lot of husbands, see a lot of dads who kind of fill the Family Guy role, right? The Peter, whatever his last name is, Peter Griffin, the Homer Simpson.
We don't watch it. But
we don't watch it, but we know that it's a trope, right?
Yeah,
the
exactly.
dads are goofy and they're kind of the butt of the family joke, and that's how society views dads. And unfortunately, there's a lot of men, a lot of guys who live down to that, rather, I guess is a better way to put it. But so that's part of what we mean. But I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate any more on what do we mean by unserious?
I mean, you think about it, actually, as you were saying that. We didn't even, like you said, not on the outline. It just gets me thinking that unserious dad trope, and guys in general. Yeah. Guys now, males, but it used to be that. I mean, Home Improvement he was the butt of the joke a lot of the time, and the goofy one. Lizzie McGuire, I don't know if you remember that. I didn't really watch it too much, but a Disney Channel show. Disney always had the dads.
I was not allowed to watch Disney Channel shows.
Well, so. Good on your parents. That's good. But yeah, going back to Archie Bunker, I mean, just the guy, the dumb dad, right? The dumb guy, the
dad's the idiot.
And the dad's the idiot. And so, yes, the not being taken seriously is either you kind of view yourself as the idiot, the butt of the joke, everybody's laughing at you, or even with you, where when it comes time to actually be serious and to have a difficult discussion or to have an emotional discussion or to ask the difficult questions, you basically you're MIA because nobody does take you seriously.
And you might be wondering, okay, well, why is that the guy's fault if other people aren't taking them seriously? And our point with this episode is a lot of it's self-induced.
Right.
A lot of this is a problem that guys bring on themselves because they don't take themselves seriously.
Bingo. Yeah, you don't.
And
take
so
yourselves.
that's kind of the point behind this episode is how do we take ourselves seriously as men? And that will, of course, lead to other people taking you more seriously. It's not a matter of you've got to be Mr. Serious and somber all the time. Right. And we're going to get to that a little bit more at the end about when is humor fine? Of course, we like to have fun. We're not anti-humor by any means. But we believe this is very important for godly young men to know how to take themselves seriously. And so I already asked you the first question. I don't know if you want to ask me this question of why this is a problem.
Yeah,
but
why do you think? Because I think we're laying out the problem, and I don't know that we fully define serious. We're going to get more into the outline. I think you'll have a better understanding as we go of what we mean by serious. It's difficult to encapsulate in one soundbite of this is what we mean by unserious. There's a whole host of things that goes with it. We're going to kind of walk through that.
I was going to say, to that point, though, I think you can look at two different, let's say, 32-year-olds.
That's so true.
And you can look at one of them and go, that guy's got his stuff together. That guy, he's got it going on. He's a serious guy versus that guy's a goofball.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy clearly has nothing together with his life. There's a correlation there. You know what I mean?
It's as simple as you see the guy who's wearing an anime t-shirt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 32 years old, he's wearing an anime t-shirt. He doesn't take himself seriously.
Yeah,
he doesn't. That may be a jerk thing to say, because I know that's big in this culture, but he doesn't. But back around to the question. Why is this a problem?
So, to me, one of the biggest reasons why it's a problem is because if you don't take yourself seriously as a man, guess who else won't take you seriously? Your wife and your kids.
Right.
And that's huge. And a lot of our episodes we relate to how does this going to affect you being a husband and a father, because that's going to be a big part of your life, Lord willing. And so that's why a lot of this stuff matters. If you were a single guy and you knew you were going to be single for the rest of your life, it might not be quite as big of a deal if you don't take yourself seriously with other people. It's still a big deal, but it's not going to be as big a deal. But if you have any aspirations to be a godly husband and a godly father, this ought to matter so much to you because you want to be taken seriously. And if your wife and kids don't take you seriously, you're going to do a miserable job of being a godly father and being a godly husband.
And in the workplace and at church. Yes. In both of those places, we go back to the dominion mandate. Our calling as men is to take dominion. if you're not taken seriously and then nobody can count on you and everybody wants to just make jokes with you instead of actually be serious with you, how are you going to be an elder in the church?
Yep.
How are you going to be a deacon? How are you going to be a preacher?
How are you going to excel in your workplace?
Exactly.
Like
How are you going to be? You're going to get the promotion, I guess. I had two separate thoughts there. You're going to get the promotion because they realized we can count on Joe. We can count on Will because he's a serious man who's going to step up in this role. And even if he doesn't know it, we know he's going to find out.
Right.
That's what a serious man does. It doesn't mean a serious man knows how to do everything or whatever else. It's that he takes himself seriously and knows how to get it done. So from the home to the workplace to church, pretty much every domain in life, you have to be taken seriously. So I think you're spot on. Why is this a problem? Because all of life is kind of dependent on it. No matter where you are, no matter what domain you're in, you have to be taken seriously.
And God wants the family. God has a certain way the family is supposed to be set up. The father's at the head. The husband and the father is at the head of the family. If that gets subverted because you're the Peter Griffin of the family, guess what? A whole lot of other things can go really awry. Your wife can kind of wear the pants in the family. Your kids can kind of run the household. And all of a sudden, just because you weren't a serious guy, you didn't take yourself seriously, your whole family is basically, again, like gone awry. It's the design that God set in place has been twisted.
And everybody has to step up. Your wife has to lead, quote unquote, has to. Now, biblically, we know she still shouldn't.
But because you're not.
But because you're not, there's a vacuum in leadership. Somebody's going to. Either the kids are going to, the wife's going to, or if there's nobody, then it's like complete neglect, and that's a problem. And so we create a vacuum of leadership where somebody will come in and fill that role. What if some other man comes into your wife's life and fills that role? I don't want to go down that path of like, well, your wife will cheat on you.
It certainly happens. Yeah.
But it does happen. If you don't take yourself seriously,
your kids will go to other people for their answers and things.
Correct, because I can't go to dad. He's not going to take me seriously, or he's just going to make a joke out of it. Whatever it is, not cool. So, next question, and this really gets us into the key part of our outline.
We have six of these? I think. Yeah, we got 6.
6 points as to what leads to this unseriousness in men. As we're talking about the unserioususness, I love that word. It's got a big red line underneath because apparently it's not a word, but we're going to make it a word today.
Unseriousness.
What leads to this unseriousness in men in our culture?
Well, and for 15 to 25-year-olds, which is, again, the demographic that we're aiming at, but of course this applies to any age of guy who can understand this, these are things to kind of look out for in your life, right? Let's say you're 17 years old and you're like, well, I don't really know if I'm serious or not. Pay attention to some of these, and if these describe you, maybe you have a few things to fix here. So the first thing we want to talk about when it comes to answering the question of what leads to this unseriousness, the first thing would be the guys that constantly chase fun.
Yeah.
Life is all about the pursuit of whatever is going to bring them enjoyment next.
It's a dopamine rush.
Dopamine, what's going to bring me the next dopamine rush? What video games can I do? Party culture. This is really big in college of like guys that just live for the weekend parties, right? They kind of breeze through school and, man, they are the life of the party on the weekends. It's just constantly chasing fun.
Yeah.
If you get into that habit from 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, that's a tough faucet to just shut off when you, again, get to have a family and get to the point where you need to start taking responsibility. If you've had the last 5 or 6 years of just constantly chasing fun, you're setting yourself up for some rough waters ahead.
I think when you see this, and this may be stepping on some people's toes, you do see this in the four-wheeling culture. You see this in the going on the lake, the boating culture. Not a problem. I'm not calling out a problem like immediately. You're saying that it's a huge problem to begin with. However, it can become a problem because you're chasing the fun.
Yeah.
Like, we just got to get to the lake. We just got to do this. And you start to like take on the persona of the fun you're trying to have. You're the video game guy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the boating guy. Yeah, you're the four-wheeling guy. You're whatever guy. And again, people don't know how to interact with you because that's who you are. And so they don't take you seriously. You're taken seriously only in whatever the fun you're having, and people don't know that they can come to you for other things. So it's just something to watch more than anything, specifically in that area of like, if you find yourself being pigeonholed, being put in this box of like, hey, he's the fun guy who does this, and nobody really interacts with you outside of it, maybe you've gone too far in the constantly chasing fun.
That's a great point. And other ways it can manifest itself, you brought up materialism when we were putting this outline together. That's a great point. Like just buying the latest toy, right? Buying the latest, and when I say toy, you're talking like iPhone or video game
PS5,
console, or maybe if you're really wealthy, the nice car, like whatever it is. There's all kind of ways it can manifest itself. I also put on here just latest Netflix show. The guys that they live for what is the next streaming hit.
Yep.
They live for what Star Wars show is Disney putting out. They live for all this stuff. Please hear us out. We're not anti-fun, okay? We are not anti-Netflix and anti...
we are anti-Disney.
Right, we are anti-Disney.
Star Wars
Cancel your
wise,
Disney
yes,
Plus subscription.
That's right.
But You know what I mean? Like, there's a time and place for all those things. That should not be the majority of your life, is constantly chasing whatever's fun next. And I see I'm going to put a lot of the, I guess, onus for this on parents, is they allow their kids, they allow their teenage boys to make that their life.
Right.
And so, again, it's no surprise that they're going to continue that into their early, 20s or so.
Yeah,
because
no doubt.
the parents allow it, the parents enable it. And so that would be the first thing. Don't constantly chase fun. It's okay to have fun. It's great to have fun. Don't make that your number one objective if you're 15, 16, 17.
Right. Fun will. It's good to fill in the gap, so to speak. That's not what life is based on.
Sure.
Number 2, constantly chasing youthfulness. And that might sound like, well, what's the difference between youthfulness and fun? I would say it hits on what we talked about last time with the party culture, but it's like being the life of the party, where you have to be noticed. You have to be seeking attention. You have to be the guy that all eyes are on him, and he's loud and telling the funny jokes. A lot of times this comes up in like dumb jokes, like the farts and the potty humor, right?
Yeah.
The burps and like, I'm not going to take you seriously if
it's also not funny at all.
It's just not funny. I mean, the potty humor, I don't get it. The SpongeBob humor, like, I just don't understand it. Look, there's a couple great memes of SpongeBob, I will say.
There are. That's the meme king.
Exactly.
Shows, yeah.
He's got 3 or 4 huge memes, but he is, though he's a man. But anyway, in chasing this youthfulness, like, I think we can always want to go back to like the 15-year-old humor, because that's what was really funny, and that's what makes us the life of the party.
It's perpetual immaturity.
And it's immaturity is really what it is. That's exactly what it is. And I would also throw in, I've already taken a shot at anime, so here goes. The anime, the cartoons, the wearing the t-shirt, and you like find your identity based on the anime. That's chasing youthfulness, is you've never gotten out of it. The Pokemon Go was great. It was really cool technology for 2 weeks. If you're still doing Pokemon Go and you're like you're spending hours a week doing Pokemon Go as a man, stop. Please. Like, and I'm not, that sounds so mean. Everybody's allowed to have their fun. But to me, there's a time and place for those things, and chasing the youthfulness of like, man, this was great when I was 12. Indulge that for a second. It's called nostalgia. That's fantastic. But we can't live lives of nostalgia.
So I don't have a ton to add here that's not going to piggyback off of another point we have, because there's several things I could bring up here that are going to get us into another point here in a bit. But you brought up something on this note, and so I don't want to steal your point. I'll speak on and let you go for it. The guys that, man, they're in their 30s or 40s, and they're constantly wanting to go back to when they were 16, or they're constantly wanting to go back to when they were in college, and just constantly living the glory days, right? And like you said, it's not wrong to be nostalgic, to reflect, hey, that was a great time or whatever. But man, there are guys who that is their thing, is to just constantly want to go back to. That's chasing youthfulness. That's refusing to look ahead to the future and what's going to make me a better man, what's going to again make me a better father and husband, and instead, man, if only we could go back to when I was doing who knows what in college, right? XYZ, doing all these things, and that's what we mean by chasing youthfulness.
Right. They're not living in the moment. They're not looking to the future. They're not being smart in it. They just want to go back to when things were really easy, when things were fun, when
maybe
things
not
were
as
good.
much responsibility.
Not as much responsibility. And once again, this is all under the umbrella of, are you taken serious? Are you a serious man? And it's difficult to be a serious guy when, and you see this with, I'm going to call out those that are big into the 80s. I think your dad may be one of them, right? I mean, you have the guys that love the 80s.
Well, there's a difference in guys who really enjoy the 80s stuff and the guys who that's their identity.
And your dad is the guy who enjoys the 80s stuff, not the identity.
Right.
We all know the guy who has the identity, wrapped up in
his
the
top
80s.
10 movies is
exactly.
all, 9 of them are 80s movies.
His top 10 albums are,
Michael Jackson and
Aha and exactly, Journey and everything.
Right.
Okay, guy. But I think there is that, I don't know. I don't want to beat this into the ground. But yes, when we're talking about being serious, make sure that you're living in the present and you're someone that understands those things. And you're not just trying to get back to your youth, because yes, youth is fun, but it was for a time. The Bible puts a premium on, hey, there's wisdom in gray hair. Mm-hmm. There's wisdom in growing older. It's really good to grow older. In America, we've gotten away from that. So we think that chasing youth is what we're supposed to do. And they say the man that's going to live to 140 has been born, something like that, because we're afraid to die. We don't want to grow older. We don't want to get the brittle bones and everything that comes with it. But what comes with it is wisdom. Yeah. What comes with it is the ability to say, wow, life is really good. I've lived a good life, and what can I pass down to the next generation? When you're constantly chasing youthfulness, you miss out on some of the serious things. And I think one thing on the outline we didn't say, and then let's move on. Pranks as well. Pranks culture is huge, specifically TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but you will see these on Facebook or Twitter. They get shared, and it's the guys that are constantly pranking their wives. And it's just the immaturity. It's like, doing that once or twice is fine. Making an entire TikTok channel out of pranking your wife,
grow up.
Grow
a
up.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not taking you seriously. Get us
So
to number
yeah,
3.
the next one, and again, we're answering the question: what leads to this unseriousness? And we have constantly chasing fun, constantly chasing youthfulness. Number 3, I would say, of what leads to this is there are other people. Other people don't take you seriously.
Right.
And this will move on quick because this is kind of a quick point, but it's a very nasty cycle of you don't take yourself seriously, I think is where it starts. And so because of that, other people don't take you seriously. And so then because of that, you take yourself even less seriously.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it just
Right.
perpetuates itself. And I think it does start with you not taking yourself seriously. But that's going to lead to other people looking at you like, yeah, that's the goofball in the room.
Right.
That's the immature one in the room. That's the one I'm not going to have a serious conversation with. That's the one where if we really, again, in the church, if we've got a spiritual problem, if we've got something that we need the men of the congregation to step up with, maybe don't give that guy the phone call. You know what I mean? And that sounds terrible, but you have to think the same thing in the work environment. If I'm a manager and I'm looking around like, who can I count on? The goofball, idiot, immature guy that never steps up and does anything and is never serious, he's not making my list.
That's exactly
It's just a fact of life. Yeah.
Yeah. You said something that sparked it. Like, you can either chase attention or respect.
Sure.
And I feel like the goofball, especially when other people are viewing you as they don't take you seriously, you do get attention, just the wrong attention.
Yeah.
Right? You find that the only attention they give, the only time they engage with me is when I'm goofy, which means I got to be goofy more, or I got to be dumb, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, vicious cycle. The way we break that is by going for respect. We want the respect of other people. And sometimes that means they don't really talk to us. Sometimes that means they shift around us if that makes them uncomfortable, but they respect us. And they're willing to look us in the eye, and they're not going to shift their body language. We'll get into that in a second. But they're not going to shift their body language or whatever else. They engage with you because you have their respect. And maybe not their attention all the time, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are two completely different things.
That's a great point. Like, chase and clamor for respect, not attention. You see the immature, the unserious guys that they're looking for attention. Great point. Let's move on to number 4. Again, reasons why, or I guess what leads to unseriousness. I would say a refusal to take steps to improve yourself. I think our second episode actually was about setting goals for yourself.
Yeah.
And we were still kind of getting the feel for how this works. So that might not have been our best episode. We think all of them are the best. No, just
of course.
Kidding.
Number one, strive for greatness. I mean,
exactly. No, probably doesn't make our top 10, but we so strongly believe in that concept of setting goals for yourself. And I think a lot of it is a mental thing. If I've got goals that I have set in my life, and I'm not talking like life goals of become a doctor. No, I'm talking about like smaller goals. I want to exercise for 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week.
Right.
I want to save XYZ amount of money. I want to spend this much time in God's Word every single day or every single week or whatever. If you have those goals, you set those goals, and you're hitting those goals, guess what that does for your self-esteem, for your mentality, it just shoots up.
Yep.
It allows you to take yourself more seriously. Flip that around. If you have somebody who doesn't do any of those things and just kind of coast through life as a teenager, as a young 20-year-old, like, again, living for fun, or basically no aspirations and no minor reading goals or, again, exercise goals or anything, no wonder you don't take yourself seriously. Like, I think setting goals, and again, we see this with men. We see this with older guys who they're kind of just, I don't know, they don't set goals for themselves. There's no desire for self-improvement. And so, no wonder people don't take you seriously.
I think, and I'm not trying to pick on the older generation. I don't think they watch this, thank goodness, 60s and up. But I think that's one of the key struggles of the retired age. You stop setting goals. You stop having a purpose. You stop being driven toward those things. And the time when people should be taking you the most seriously, because we don't really appreciate the older generation in this country, that's some of the, in my opinion, some of the worst years of your life where you're forgotten. You don't have attention or respect.
Yeah.
And so, man, you don't want to be that. When you hit 60, 70, 80 years old and you've retired, like, set goals now, set goals then. Have things that you're striving for, because the overweight guy who has no self-discipline, who's constantly chasing video games and eating frozen pizzas for dinner every night, like, you are not proud of the guy when you look in the mirror.
Yep.
You're just not. And so if you're not proud of him and you don't take him seriously, why is anyone else supposed to take you seriously? So yes, refusal to take steps to try to improve yourself is a key sign of somebody who does not take themselves seriously, and really what leads to the unseriousness.
We're not talking about like, my goal is to lose 70 pounds or my goal is to become a neurosurgeon. We're not talking about that. We're talking about day-to-day, week-to-week, smaller goals that you can not easily hit, but that are manageable. Things that you can
1% improvements,
Yes, and that leads to just a mental... I'm trying to think of the word to use, but like it improves your mental state. It improves your self-esteem. You're like, I can do this. And all of a sudden, guess what? You're taking yourself more seriously. Look around, guess what? Other people are taking you seriously. Man, it's such a catalyst, I guess, for this.
see a guy, and this kind of goes with all of them. I don't know if this is getting into one
for
ahead, but you see a guy walk into a room. We talked about this on one of the.
We did, yeah, I remember this.
But whatever it is, you see a guy walking in a room. He's got a suit. He's got his Rolex on. He's got nice looking hair, and you can tell he's going places.
Yep.
And you see a guy who walks in with his anime T-shirt and his
joggers
gym shorts
and
or whatever,
yeah.
and flip flops. Which one do you think takes himself seriously? That doesn't mean the guy in the anime T-shirt may be a TikTok millionaire.
Right.
You don't know. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of respect. Again,
Yep.
Like this guy may have millions of people watch him and he's a goofball and that's what he makes his money. He gets the attention. He has nobody's respect. The guy who walks in with the suit, he's got, the guy may be an idiot. He may not know how to string three words together. But there is a presentation of respect, and you can tell he takes himself seriously. Those are the things that help win you jobs. Those are the things that help make you desirable and attractive to a future spouse, is they see that and they go, whoa, this guy actually takes care of himself. He cleans up a little bit, and he wears some nice clothes, and he actually smells good. And there's things like that, and I understand this is on the goal point, but that's what I'm talking about, is the guy who sets goals is the same type of guy who's going to be thinking about those things as well.
He's dressed for success.
Exactly.
Like well, I want to bring up, because I can hear maybe some older people or parents going, so you're just, you're telling us to judge by appearance and to focus only on externals and yada, yada, yada. I want you to imagine if the Apostle Paul or Peter lived in today's culture, which one of those guys do you think he would be dressed like? Do you think he'd be wearing the joggers and the anime T-shirt and the flip-flops? And you're like, oh, that's all conjecture. You're right, it is. I tend to think he's going to take himself seriously with the way he presents himself.
Based on 1 Corinthians 13, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yes, we're not supposed to judge off of appearance. It's not all about externals, but man, that stuff matters. And we had an episode to call back again to a different one on how to present yourself. That matters. Joe, get us into number 5.
Number 5, I think, yeah.
This one's big, I think.
Yes, it is. Might be one of the biggest, honestly.
Kind of what leads to unseriousness?
Yeah, so you put this on the outline, so I should let you lead, but this is such a good point. What leads to unseriousness? Number 5, refusal to take risks and actually try to achieve. We have hit this point home, which is you have to have effort. You have to try, right? It's not cool to not try.
Yeah.
And you also find that you fall way behind, and then you resort to cheap tactics like being the goofy guy, being the funny guy, whatever, because I'm so far behind everybody else. But it's refusal to take risks and to actually, again, try to achieve. I'm going to let you kind of take the lead.
Well, yeah, think about it. Like, you take yourself more seriously when you achieve tough things. When you take a hard class and you pass it. When you have a really tough assignment ahead of you and you pass it with flying colors.
Yep.
When you have a big job and I don't want to give any specifics, but like you've got something that's tough that you are working at. And you do it, you achieve it. Guess what that does for you? You take yourself real seriously. Here's the problem. Those things are difficult. Those things take a lot of brain work. Those things take writing a big paper or whatever it is. Those things take a lot of effort, and a lot of guys don't want to put in that effort. So you know what they do? I'll take the easy route. I'm not going to take that class. I'm not going to stick with that job. I'm just going to kind of do whatever's going to path of least resistance, so to speak. And so guess what that does for you taking yourself seriously? You never take yourself seriously because you're not achieving anything difficult. If you never try, no wonder you don't take yourself seriously, again, because you're not achieving anything difficult. You're not sticking out the tough job. You're not really aiming for that high-paying promotion. You're not aiming to take that tough class and sticking with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you never try to achieve those things, you taking yourself seriously is a lot farther off versus the guys who are like, you know what? I might fail this class. I'm going to take it. I might really struggle with this writing this paper. I'm going to try it anyway. I might really be out of my depth here with this new job. I'm going to give it a try anyway. Those are usually the people that succeed, and those are also usually the people that take themselves seriously.
That is so true. We were talking about it off air and have it on the outline here. The sticking with the tough job that you alluded to, it's very difficult as a young guy to work. The job, the hours, the pay may not be great, but if you stick with a tough job from time to time, like there's respect given in that.
Oh yeah.
And you are taken seriously. We were talking about the idea of maybe being in shipping. You hate doing this Amazon fulfillment, Walmart fulfillment, whatever it is, and it's boxes and it's heavy and it's just not great. And you could bounce to the next job and the next job and the next job, or you could stay there and you could have the story about the time that the raccoon attacked you, or you could have the story about. And it's those stories that make me take you seriously. Like, hey, you've been around, you've actually been through some hard things, and you stuck it out even though it wasn't easy, and you were up early, and you were putting in hard hours, and you were sweating, and you've grown some muscle.
Yeah, I tried it for 6 weeks and I didn't like it. So I went
it wasn't
over
my
here.
thing.
Yeah,
it really wasn't my thing
for me. Yeah,
and I'm trying to figure out what my thing is, but it might be Chick-fil-A. It might be. What's your thing, man? And there's no, look, I'm not downing anybody working for Chick-fil-A, working for Walmart or Amazon or wherever else. I'm not downing you for that. My point is, are you sticking out the difficult job? Are you doing the tough things, to your point?
Not
Are you
just
doing
taking the path of least resistance.
Not just taking the path of least resistance. And this is a refusal to take risks that leads toward this unseriousness. Like, you see this in young kids. A kid who never really takes the risk of climbing on the jungle gym, could he fall off and break his arm? Very realistically. My sons, the other day, were at the park. I mean, he must have been up. He was up there, like 15 feet in the air, and he's just swinging or something.
Harrison.
Lachlan follows him, and Lachlan is 3 years old. It's like, please don't do that. They were great. You got to let them take risks. And of course, I'm not sitting back like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm underneath.
They'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm underneath looking at them, but they have to be able to take risks from a very young age, and that's what I would encourage, not just my boys, but encourage you guys to do. Like, take risks. Do difficult things, stick with the hard things, and yes, there's going to be times where you are flat out scared for your life. That's what makes us men, and that's what makes us, and it tells great stories later on, and that's what causes people to take you seriously.
Well, you look back and you're like, man, that's a high mountain I just climbed.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel great, you know?
Oh, yeah.
That's, again, you take yourself
and
more
other
seriously.
people see that too, and it's not always about other people, but yes, other people see that, no doubt.
All right, number 6, and then we got a few other things we want to do, but what leads to this unseriousness in men? Number 6, I would say, is a refusal to immerse yourself in the real world. A lot of the stuff we've talked about kind of is encapsulated in this, the chasing fun, the chasing youthfulness. But we've got you see guys that would just kind of rather stay in their little kid bubble, you know, of like, my life consists of, again, the latest, you know, a Marvel obsession, or you brought up anime a few times. But, you know, like, you never want to have tough conversations. You see these guys who are 18, 19, we're sitting around at dinner, you're sitting in a restaurant. Man, they can't talk about, and we've talked about this before, but like, they can't talk about anything that's not a pop culture thing.
Right.
They can't talk about anything that's not music or whatever it is. And so I think that can continue on into your 20s, and even when you have a family. Like, you just don't want to immerse yourself in the real world, because again, to the last point, it's tougher. It's more difficult. It's less, you know, dopamine hit as you're thinking about the fun stuff in your life. It's tough to immerse yourself in the real world.
Yeah, it is.
And you don't want to immerse yourself in cultural things. If you want to take yourself serious and you want other people to do that, you got to grow up and get in the real world at some point.
Yeah. There's also this idea of passing the buck, right? Like, part of us not being in the real world is passing the buck and not taking responsibility. What makes you unserious and what causes people to not take you seriously is if, when you mess up, you're always pointing the finger. Well, this was this person's fault and that person's fault.
Yeah.
I know I can't trust you because you'll throw me under the bus, or you're not going to take this thing seriously.
Right.
You are going to mess up. You want to be the guy that, look, we all mess up. We all make mistakes, but be willing to own that and to say, you know what, I did mess up here, and that's on me, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to learn from it. That causes you to gain respect more than anything else, in my opinion, is when you are willing to look at the mistake you made and go,
that's on me.
Yeah, that's on me. That was my bad. But you grow from it. I trust that guy way more than the other guy who's quick to just pass the buck and point fingers to everybody else. And that's a failure or refusal, in my opinion, to immerse yourself in the real world. The real world hurts.
Yep.
The real world, there are mistakes, but you have to take responsibility. And this is where you're just constantly passing the buck so as to take the path of least resistance. I don't respect you. And so, no, I don't take you seriously if that's the case. And nor would you take me seriously. So
again, I would challenge everybody, for those 6 that we just listed, look at your own life and see if any of those describe you. Hopefully not. But if they do, maybe that's something that you need to change. We're going to end with, quickly, actionable steps here in just a second of like, okay, right now, if you're 15, right now, if you're 18, if you're 21, whatever, these are things that you can do. But before we get into that, Joe, I want you to get us into this next small section, because we're already at the 30-minute mark, of kind of like when to be serious and when not to be. Because, again, I don't want anybody listening to this going, man, these guys never smile in their life.
Right.
These guys never crack a joke. These guys are always working. They're always in the Bible. They're never have any fun. That is certainly not the case.
That is not the case.
We've got plans to go golf next week. You know, like, that's not the most serious thing in the world. And so there's a balance here. There is a fine line between, you know, no fun at all. We got to be Mr. Somber all the time versus, you know, the goofball, the idiot that we've kind of been describing this whole episode. We need to be in the middle.
That's right.
We need to be somewhere in the middle. How do we find that? What's the balance there? Because there is the
pendulum swing.
Yeah. Where do we park the pendulum at?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to have fun, to have a sense of humor. As a matter of fact, we could do an entire episode. We were talking.
Well, real quick, sorry, to that point, like, having a sense of humor, I'd rather be around somebody who has a sense of humor than somebody who does not.
We're thinking about maybe doing an episode on developing a sense of humor, because there's some people that are just devoid of humor. Yeah. And then there's other ones where it's like not great humor, and, you know, we don't want that either.
Right.
But it is okay to have fun. So when do you know that you've overdone it? that you had too much fun, quote unquote, that you are unserious at this point, or that people don't take you seriously. A couple things to watch out for, then I'm going to turn it over to you for actionable steps. First, when people tune you out of conversations, and this was your point, I think that's such a key point that you made. Like
you can tell they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm ready to
right,
move
the
on.
body language, they're turned away from you,
Not
or
really
they're just
looking in the
their
eye.
eyes are kind of tracing around the room as to who's the next most interesting person they're going to talk to, because clearly you don't have their attention. Like, yes, that very clearly, in my opinion, points to maybe they don't take you fully seriously if they're not straight up looking at your body language. Number two, I'd say people always joke with you, and they keep it lighthearted at all times.
Like every single conversation they have with you is a joke.
It's a joke. Yeah. Every single time that there's a hot take in the culture, they're figuring out how to make a joke. And if people are always joking with you, why? Like, take a step back. Why do they find you to be the funny guy? Is it because you're just a guy that accepts it? Once again, it's not wrong to have fun, but if you're the guy where everything turns into a joke around you, pay attention to that. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are not being taken seriously, but kind of does. You know, it does. It seriously points to maybe there's an issue there. Number three, people won't have emotionally, it kind of goes with the last one. People won't have emotionally rich and deep conversations with you. They're not willing to open up about any true struggles in their life. They're not really willing to ask you, no, but how are you really doing, right? Like, if they take you seriously, they really want to know what's going on in your life. And if they don't, well, again, they keep it lighthearted. Let's talk about the most recent Netflix show. Let's talk about pop culture things. Those are some things to just watch out for, as to have I allowed fun to be my identity to the point that people don't take me seriously.
So I'm going to, one more curveball before we get to the actionable steps. Something that I just thought of that I think is worth talking about is we're talking about taking yourself seriously, specifically with guys and men and whatnot. I would say put an end to all self-deprecating humor. Self-deprecating humor.
2 thumbs up to that one. Absolutely.
Is just something that you see guys, you see men, you see fathers, husbands posting that kind of stuff on Facebook. Like, haha, joke's on me. I'm good. And it's like, it's okay to laugh at yourself every now and then. You need to know how. But if you're initiating the self-deprecating joke, you got some self-esteem problems. You've got some, and I hate to be a jerk. I hate that I've seen guys post on Facebook about, joking about how much they weigh and stuff like that. And it's like, quit with the self-deprecating humor.
That is
It is
so
not
true.
flattering whatsoever. It is not funny, second of all.
Right.
And it's just not, you're not taking yourself seriously, and nobody else is either if you're constantly throwing out the self-deprecating humor.
What is the right response to somebody who's using self-deprecating?
Like, haha, you're right. Like,
you can either say, affirm it, you're right, haha, you're an idiot. Like, that doesn't feel good. Or they can try to build you up. No, not at all. And a lot of times that's what you're going for. You don't need that.
Yeah,
you don't
get that out of here.
bad. I love that point, man. I'm glad you brought that up.
Complete
That is
audible,
such a, I'm telling you, we go off, we got, timing-wise, we need to stop. But that's such a key thing in our culture. You see this, and going back to the dad thing on TV shows and such, that is so key. They're always downing themselves. They're always making a joke of themselves. They're always the butt of the joke. You should not be. My dad was never this. And yeah, there's some, I shouldn't say you should never.
We're not saying be prideful. Like,
correct. And there's some of that, I'm sure. Love my dad, but I think there was a little bit of that. At the same time, he was not the butt of the joke. Yeah. He's dad. I mean, he
gets respect.
Exactly. He was respected so much in our home that it's like, we're not making him the butt of the joke. How in the world? Why would we do that? So he didn't self-deprecate in his humor. Like, occasionally, yeah, he can laugh at himself, but it was never he's the butt of the joke. I would challenge you, if you are in your home and you're starting your family, don't be the butt of the joke. Don't allow your kids to make jokes on your expense.
Just get it out of your vocabulary.
Yeah, exactly. That are just, once again, we're going for respect. I think that's really the key here, is being taken seriously is about respect. And are you respected? You can laugh at yourself and have jokes made at your expense that they still respect you. They love you. It's joking with you. When it's crossed the line. When every joke you do is self-deprecating. Sorry, I didn't mean. That's such a good point.
Again, so a curveball. We'll make that the first actionable step. Number 1. Yeah. Cut out the self-deprecating humor.
There you go.
You go ahead and get us in number 2, because this was our number 1 on here.
Yes,
but we're gonna
which
call
is
it
don't
number
always
2.
look to make the joke.
Yeah.
Don't always look to make a joke about everything. I remember a kid. They had. Oh, man. Yeah. It was. My dad was talking about 9/11 had just happened, he reported it to someone, and the kid made a joke about 9/11. That did not go over on 9/11. Like, you can't make that joke. You can't just.
That's a self-awareness thing.
It was such a self-awareness thing, but that's what I'm saying, is like the guy who's always looking to make the joke out of everything.
Because it might be funny 80% of the time, but that 20% when it's on 9/11 or something, it's like you really.
That's
messed
exactly it. Like, you have to be aware, if you're always making the joke out of everything because that's who you are. No, don't. Yeah. That's an actionable step. Get us to number 2.
Yeah, number 3.
Number 3. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. Number 3. Yeah,
number 3. I would say speak up and participate in Bible class. And you might be going, well, that's kind of a weird one to include. But you see guys who, again, young guys, 16, 17, and maybe we have an all-adult class at Jackson Temple, but even when I was teaching the young people in Decatur, the guys that would speak up, the guys that would, ask a question, they're not like, am I going to get the wrong answer? Let me just stay quiet. No, they'd speak up, and, whether or not they got the right answer or not, like, that's an actionable step.
That's your risk-taking.
That's the risk-taking. That's an actionable step you can take to say, I'm going to take myself seriously. And guess what? I took those guys a whole lot more seriously. I took those kids a whole lot more seriously. Same thing again. Even if you're in an adult class, you could have you don't want to just talk for the sake of talking, but you look around and go, I might not have the right answer here, but I'm going to speak out. I'm going to participate. Right. I think that's a very, very tangible thing that young men can do to take themselves more seriously and have other people take them seriously, is actually participate in Bible class.
Absolutely. Number 4, find someone you take seriously, learn from them, talk with them. Find that mentor, find somebody you go, man, I like that guy. I respect him a lot, and I take him seriously, and I know that when I come to him with a problem, he doesn't blow me off. He doesn't make a joke out of it. He doesn't, just not give me the time of day and is off somewhere else. Like, he's here for me. Find somebody. That may be your dad. That's obviously the hope. That would be the dream. Some people don't have that. Yeah. Find somebody at your church. Find somebody in your life that is taking you seriously and you can take seriously. What is it about them that you love? What is it that you take seriously and that you respect? Try to be that.
That's a great one. Number 5, and we've talked about this, so I'll move quickly, but set goals for yourself. Set goals and work hard to reach those goals. Yep. Talk about as tangible as you can get. Like, go write them down. Write down exercise goals. Write down spiritual goals of Bible study and prayer time and whatever else you can think of. Write down financial goals. Write down reading goals. Like, actually strive for something in your life, whether or not you're 15 and in your junior, or I guess that'd be sophomore year of high school, or whether or not you're in your senior year of college. If this is not a habit that you have, man, don't wait till New Year's. Don't wait till January 1st. Right. Start at the first of the month. These are the goals I have for this week. These are the goals I have for this month.
Yep.
Trust me, you will take yourself so much more seriously when you look, even if you have 4 goals and you fail one of them, you look back and like, I made some serious progress that week. I made some serious progress that month. You will take yourself way more seriously.
Pro tip, take Sunday. Always take Sunday. To use that as a day. It is a day of rest, as much as you can, right? It's a day of rest. Use Sunday as your goal-setting day. My wife and I have gotten into this where every Sunday is like, what are we going to do for this next week? We meal plan. We plan out the entire week. I plan out my client schedule. And so when we enter into the week, man, Monday morning rolls around. We're up at 5:30. We're ready to go. Yeah. We're ready to roll. So, use Sunday as that. Number 6, scale way back on being a perpetual kid. We wanted to say this kindly without saying, just stop. We don't want to be that guy. Look, scale it back.
I enjoy Marvel movies. I enjoy Star Wars.
Yeah, no doubt.
We're not saying
we can have fun
completely, yeah.
But if your identity, I guess is what we're saying, is the anime. Man, anime's taking a beating. But is the Marvel obsession.
To anime,
Exactly. I'm not a big fan, if you haven't noticed yet at this point. The stupid potty humor, the SpongeBob, the things like that. Like, if that is your shtick, if that's your identity, man, scale it back. Yeah. It's okay to enjoy it, but don't let anybody think that that's what you're all about, because you will never gain respect. You'll never be taken seriously if they only see you as the SpongeBob guy, the anime guy, whatever.
Last but not least, and I'm going to get you, if you don't mind, get your phone out to pull up these so that we can get them exactly right. I don't want to just paraphrase them and misquote them, but we've got some Bible verses we want to hit here. Number 7 would be, make being a serious man of God your ultimate goal. Whole point of this podcast, right? Godly young men. Make being a serious, godly young man, a man of God, make that your ultimate goal. Joe, hit us with some of these verses.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 13:11 is our first one, which, of course, that's the passage on love. Everybody knows that. Yep. We know the first and the end of it, with faith, hope, and love abide these 3. But this is so interesting. In verse 11, he says, when I was a child, I used to speak like a child, think like a child, reason like a child. When I became a man, I did away with childish things. Now, you could say, well, that's not really the context. Look, the context is do away with childish things. It's going to be man. That's pretty clear. Yeah. Regardless of what the context is of, what it's talking about? Yeah, he's saying, I did away with childish things. It's okay to be a child. It's okay. He's not down in children. He's not saying that it's a bad deal. He's saying, when I was a child, I used to do those things. That's great.
I'm not a child anymore.
I'm not a child anymore. It's time to grow up. Next one's 1 Corinthians 16, actually. I'll probably just scroll to this one. It's 1 Corinthians 16, 13, and 14. I shouldn't have scrolled because chapter 15 is like 60 verses long. He says, starting in 1 Corinthians 16, starting in verse 13 here, be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Actually, we'll just end with that. Verse 14, let all that you do be done in love. But that verse 13 right there, be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Act like men. That's really, really good. That's being taken seriously. And last but not least, we have 1 Peter 4 and verse 7, which says, the end of all things is near, therefore be of sound judgment and sober spirit for the purpose of prayer. Being of that sound judgment, and being sober, that's taking yourself seriously.
We covered a tangent of this in a Think Deeper episode, and one of the points I think Jack, your brother, made, shout out Jack, is, well, why do we need to take ourselves seriously and be serious? Because we got work to do.
Yeah,
there are
exactly.
things to be done. Living as a Christian in this world is tough, and it's probably going to be getting tougher.
Right.
We don't have time for unseriousness. We don't have time for men that are not serious, that are not taking themselves seriously, that are not taking care of their families, that their wives doesn't respect them, their kids don't respect them.
That's right.
We don't have time for that. And so I want to encourage everybody. This is not meant to be a downer episode. This is meant to be, if you are a young man who has not had a family, who does not have a family yet, and who is still kind of learning how to be a man, make this a part of your goal, I guess, to become a man who takes themselves seriously. If any of these things that we've described of things that lead to unseriousness, if that describes you, take a look at it, closer examine it, and maybe try to eradicate those things from your life as much as possible. Let's say you are a man who already has a family, and maybe you do the self-deprecating humor. Maybe you don't take yourself quite as seriously. Start now. Take these actionable steps. Whether you're 15 or 35, God needs serious men. God needs godly young men who take themselves seriously, whose wives respect them, whose kids respect them, and who can lead their family and lead the church. And that's the whole point behind this.
I'm not adding anything else to that. This has been episode 35 of the Gym Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Give us your thoughts, your comments, whatever it is, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you find us. Let us know your thoughts. If there's anything that you want to add to it, any part that you say, well, they didn't say this, or maybe if you disagree with some of it, we'd love to just even banter, go back and forth, whatever it is. But we'll wrap up right there. Thanks for watching /listening. We'll catch you next week.